Yo, what's happening, everybody? My name is Anthony Correnti, and thank you, as always, for checking out another episode of the Dynasty Drive. I appreciate all of the support, as always. If you're watching the show on YouTube this week, we're going to try and get back to the grind of putting these out on YouTube as well. But make sure to hit that like button on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the other video content set to come your way, and leave a comment down below on who your favorite 2023 NFL draft or fantasy football prospect is, because that's what we're going to be talking on today's show. Very early look at the top 2023 prospects for the NFL draft and for fantasy football purposes for our dynasty leagues. So, kind of a way too early look at who the top guys are set to come out or are eligible to come out in the 2023 NFL draft. Before we get into it, just a reminder, you can follow me on Twitter at Dynasty Drive. You can follow the show on Instagram at the Dynasty Drive. You can like the show on Facebook. And while you're at it, make sure to head on over to patreon.com/thefffeducator and subscribe to gain access to the Rookie Big Board and the Rookie Big Board premium content. So there you can get the consensus dynasty rankings for myself and the rest of the Dynasty Big Board crew from Rookie Big Board. So that's the exclusive home to my dynasty rankings. You can get consensus Devy rankings from myself, Skip Newton, and Matt Hicks, as well as John Lobb's Devy rankings and Matt's Rookie Big Board overall, which is his 2023 Rookie Big Board will be dropping soon. Excellent resource, all of that, plus access to a fantastic, very lively, very engaging Discord channel where you can ask all of us for personalized advice on your roster, trades, whatever questions you might have. Super active, lots of chat going on in there all day, every day. So head on over to patreon.com/theffeducator and make sure you get yourself signed up for all that stuff. So without further ado, let's start talking 2023 NFL draft. The 2022 NFL draft is in the books, and kind of the talking points for a long time have been that, while this draft had some players, we heard that kind of drumbeat of fade 2022 picks for a while because 2023 was going to be superior in nearly every way, right? And I do think that 2022 got a bad rap still. It's going to produce, I think, a good number of quality players. There was a lot of wide receiver talent to get excited about, and, a couple headliners at the top at running back with Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker. But 2023 is going to be more fun, right? This is going to be, from right now anyway, looks set to be a pretty excellent crop of skill player talent set to come out. Again, another loaded class of wide receiver talent, but a lot more high-end running back talent and a lot more quarterback talent, I think, to really get excited about. So quarterback talent in 2022. Obviously, this year was kind of weird. We only had the one first-round draft pick with Kenny Pickett. Matt Corral slides, Malik Willis slides, Desmond Ridder slides. All these guys slide that people thought could get first-round draft capital, and now their value is kind of, up in the air, right, in Superflex leagues. These guys, instead of going middle round 1 or late round 1 in Superflex rookie drafts, you're seeing them go round 3, late round 2, because nobody really knows for certain what's going to happen with them, right? Because they didn't get that first-round draft capital, so there's way more projection in play than when somebody gets selected in the top 10 or even in the first round period, and that they're going to kind of gain hold of that starting job, at least for the foreseeable future, right? If that was the case with somebody like Malik Willis, the upside that he has with his legs as a runner would have made him fantasy relevant, even if he didn't develop as a passer. So 2023 has those headliners at quarterback. It's got another loaded wide receiver class and a lot of running back talent to get pretty jazzed up about. So without any more hype about it, let's jump right into it and start with the wide receivers. So right now, the way this is going to work is these are kind of my top players that are eligible for 2023 set to come out. So if you were to kind of extrapolate this from my Devy rankings, this is how they stack up in order right now based on being eligible for 2023. So wide receivers in the 2023 class, my 1 through 5 right now. Number 1 will be Jaxon Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. Number 2, Kayshon Boutte from LSU. Number 3, Jordan Addison. We're recording this Thursday night, May 19th, and news has broke. So Jordan Addison, formerly of the Pitt Panthers, now headed to the University of Southern California. Number 4 would be Josh Downs from North Carolina. And number 5, Quentin Johnston from TCU. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, the headliner, man, the best of the class for me as of right now. And I don't know that there's a whole lot that can change this for me. Him and Boutte will be pretty close, I think, when it's all said and done. But Jaxon Smith-Njigba has had a explosive breakout sophomore season in a loaded wide receiver room, right? A wide receiver room that, a couple of years ago saw Jameson Williams transfer out of Ohio State because he couldn't get on the field behind guys like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. Well, Jaxon Smith-Njigba just had an incredible season with those guys there, right? With Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave both there, who end up being both top, whatever it was, 11 or 12 draft picks in the NFL. JSN could end up being better than both of them. He can do it all. He can get the tough catches over the middle. He can create yards after catch. He's fast enough to win vertically. He's a complete wide receiver and absolutely deserving of being wide receiver 1 in this draft class. If not him, there's a chance it'll end up being the guy right behind him, Kayshon Boutte. But JSN is the early favorite for me to be the top wide receiver in the 2023 NFL draft. Now, Kayshon Boutte, I think, is a player that lethal, right? These two guys are kind of the headliners, in my opinion, of the wide receiver group for 2023. Boutte is kind of, still, I think, a little bit trying to emerge from that Ja'Marr Chase shadow. Not that he's the same exact player or anything. Very, very good in yards after catch. The questions I have around Kayshon Boutte kind of center around, can he stay on the field for a whole season? I'd really like to see him get a full season under his belt in 2022 and hopefully, end the season healthy as we approach the 2023 NFL draft. He's a very, very exciting player. And, that's really the one question I have for him is I hope he can string together a full season and stay healthy this year for LSU. And I don't know. It's very early again, but I don't know that there's a whole lot that could take one of these two guys out of the top 2. JSN and Kayshon Boutte are going to be hard to dethrone from the number 1 and number 2 spot for the rest of this wide receiver class, despite the fact that there's some very good talent available. So Jordan Addison's the next guy on my list. Played for the Pittsburgh Panthers last year, was Kenny Pickett's go-to guy at Pitt, had over 1,500 yards receiving, and then kind of maybe surprisingly, enters the transfer portal. So transfer portal's kind of the Wild West right now with all the name, image, likeness deals going on in college football. And just as of today, I think last night, so that would have been Wednesday, May 18th, started coming out that it was down to 2 teams for Addison, USC and Texas. There were some reports that it would be Texas. And we kind of ended up where this whole thing started after Addison reportedly was going to enter the transfer portal and that he's going to play at USC. So look, I get it. He's coming off a big season. He wants to try and, boost that draft stock even more. He should have that chance at SC with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley's offense. And hopefully he'll get to showcase himself in a pretty big way. He'll be the guy there this season. Addison's a really good wide receiver. It's tough to poke holes in a guy's game who's coming off a 1,500-yard plus season. And the transfer portal, we're going to see more and more of this. So not, totally shocking. This is kind of becoming the new normal in college football right now. But he would kind of lead the pack in this next tier for me. Josh Downs from North Carolina is kind of – so I know there's going to be the obvious comparison we'll get drawn to. Is he the same player as Dyami Brown from North Carolina a couple of years ago? I think Josh Downs has the ability and the skill set to be a much more complete player rather than just kind of being a true deep threat. I think Downs can do a lot more in the short and intermediate areas of the field, especially in yards after catch. Doesn't have the big, huge size profile that people want, but he's a very good receiver, very, very good speed, and I think kind of fits the mold of this new not small, I hate to say small, but smaller body type wide receiver that we're seeing succeed in the NFL. We're seeing get, early draft capital in the NFL, the Elijah Moores, the Jahan Dotsons of the world. I think Josh Downs has the skill set and the traits to be a round 1 player next year. It won't surprise me at all if he's a first-round draft pick. And then the 5th wide receiver I had here is Quentin Johnston from TCU. Quentin Johnston's got speed for days, and the NFL craves it, right? They crave this skill set time and time again, and right or wrong, we see them kind of gravitate towards this skill set. We see the Lions trade all the way up for Jameson Williams. He can win deep. He's lethal at it. We see, obviously it didn't work out for a variety of reasons, but we see Henry Ruggs be an early draft pick. The NFL is constantly looking to find guys that can win deep, that can be speedsters, that can be a true lethal deep threat to rip the top off of defense, and Johnston can do that. I think he's got the body type to put on a little more weight and maybe not lose a whole lot of that speed and develop the rest of his game. But the upside is monstrous for this guy because he might be the best pure deep threat coming out in 2023. All right, let's talk running backs. And at a high level, just taking a step back, the running back class for 2023 is significantly better than 2022. 2022, of course, has Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, but then after that, it became a little bit of a mess. Well, 2023 is going to have guys that there's plenty of reasons to be excited about now and moving forward. And the number one player, I think it's going to be hard to find somebody not rank this guy number one, is Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. So Bijan's a true 3-down runner. I think the way I put it recently was tailor-made for the new NFL. He doesn't have to come off the field if you don't want him to. He's big, he's strong, he's incredibly fast, he can pass catch, he's a more than capable receiver, he's willing as a pass protector. He's a true workhorse running back. Bijan Robinson almost definitively will end up being, the number one running back in next year's NFL draft and in fantasy drafts, or rookie drafts, that is. He's an elite talent. I hate to say generational, but probably pretty close to a generational talent. We've known this for, over a year now, it feels like. Bijan will be almost nearly impossible to knock out of this number one running back spot. He's a true stud, a true bell cow kind of runner, and I can't wait to see him at the NFL level. I think he's going to do some crazy things at Texas this year and then head to the NFL. Number 2 on this list is Jahmyr Gibbs, so formerly of Georgia Tech, enters the transfer portal, now with the Alabama Crimson Tide. Jahmyr Gibbs is not only dynamic, electric playmaker, but proven as a receiver. And I think that's kind of the operative word, right? And that's kind of the key for him. A lot of these running backs, we have to make that projection and hope they can become pass catchers. Jahmyr Gibbs is a pass catcher. Like, we've seen it already at Georgia Tech, over, I think, 450 yards a season ago receiving. He can catch the ball. He's electric in space. He's a great runner as well. To me, Jahmyr Gibbs is one of those players that can come in and be an Alvin Kamara type, a Christian McCaffrey type, somebody that you can count on to get 60 receptions, 65 receptions, somebody that can be a focal point of not only your running game, but also of your passing attack. And we know that that's invaluable for fantasy football purposes. And he's going to get to show out in a big way with the Crimson Tide, right? Not to slight Georgia Tech, but he's going to get to play behind a very good offensive line with, a Heisman candidate quarterback and weapons around him. It's all going to line up for Jahmyr Gibbs to boost his draft stock way through the roof. Those are the 2 headliners. So like we said with Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, and Kayshon Boutte at wide receiver, these are the 2 at running back that are kind of a cut above the rest for me right now, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. The third guy is where some question marks start to creep in, right? Ole Miss running back Zach Evans. So Zach Evans, formerly of TCU, transfers to Ole Miss. Kind of a tumultuous college career to this point, right? Had the strange kind of recruiting process, former number 1 recruit, and there was some craziness involved there before he ends up at TCU, and we've seen flashes of kind of brilliance from him. Well, I think this is the season where we're going to get to see Zach Evans with every opportunity to contribute in a big, big way for Ole Miss. He can catch the ball as well. We know he is extremely capable as a runner, formerly the best recruit in the country at the position. The talent's there. We just got to see him put it all together this year. And if he can, the sky is truly the limit for Zach Evans. And I think in that Ole Miss system, we're going to see him get a lot of opportunity this year. And then the next 2 guys, Syracuse's Sean Tucker and Auburn's Tank Bigsby, maybe don't offer quite the same upside in the passing game as Bijan, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Zach Evans. But I think there's still, work that they can contribute there. Sean Tucker comes off a big, huge year for Syracuse, and Tank Bigsby is starting to feel kind of like the forgotten man in this running back class. And I don't know that that's really a slight against him. I think it's more testament to the prospects set to be eligible for the 2023 class. Tank Bigsby's a good running back prospect, man. He's a big physical player. And I think it's just the product of players around him at the time, just like we've kind of seen the last 2 years where players, especially at the wide receiver position, have gotten pushed down draft boards and become a value just based on the other players around them that are coming out the same year and kind of clogging things up. I think Tank could be that guy who becomes a value both for an NFL team and for fantasy football managers as well, if these other 3 or 4 guys do end up going ahead of him next year. All right, let's talk some of the quarterbacks, right? A little more juice than there was in 2022. Although maybe at points in 2022 or leading up to the 2022 NFL draft, we thought that some of these guys, or some of those guys rather, would be selected earlier than they actually were. But let's kick things off with the way I have them stacked up right now is Bryce Young from Alabama, number 1, CJ Stroud from Ohio State, number 2. Next, I have Anthony Richardson from Florida. Next is Tennessee's quarterback Hendon Hooker, and then Miami signal caller Tyler Van Dyke, rounding out the top 5 quarterbacks that I have eligible for the 2023 NFL draft at this point. So Bryce Young, I think a lot of people will point to the size. I don't think that the size thresholds are maybe as important as they once were, but some teams I'm sure will write him off just for being a smaller guy, but he has a plenty strong arm. It's like a false equivalency sometimes, I think, where he's small, so he must not have a live arm. He's got a very good arm. He's very accurate. He's got, of course, talent around him, but I think he does a lot to elevate that talent around him as well. So for me, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, similar to the last 2 position groups, these are the 2 that are kind of a cut above, right? These 2 stand alone. And I think consensus right now might be swaying towards CJ Stroud as QB1. And again, there's so much time before we get there that there's plenty that can change. Truthfully, right now, I have Young and Stroud so close. Landing spot will matter. Weapons around them will matter at the pro level. But right now, it's a minute difference that I have between these 2 players, with Young just getting an edge ahead of him. CJ Stroud, I think, is a very, very good prospect as well. Incredibly accurate. He's got plenty of arm strength. And again, similar to Bryce Young, he plays on a team with a loaded supporting cast, but I think he will continue to take that next step this year and elevate some more of that talent around him. Anthony Richardson is where it gets interesting for me. This is a guy that him and I guess let's lump him and Hooker from Tennessee together for a second. What these guys can do both as passers and in the running game could make them true difference makers for fantasy football purposes. And Anthony Richardson has some Cam Newton vibes, right? Big, strong guy, can run that kind of quarterback power a little bit. And that's fun, right? Like we see the running quarterbacks and Malik Willis and Lamar Jackson and those guys, but it's fun when you could see, a big guy run some quarterback power. So I'm hopeful that Richardson can kind of continue that development and take that next step this year, because I love the upside of what he offers as a total overall package from a physical standpoint. Hooker will be interesting because he's got that late breakout thing going on, right? Like people will question how legit is it? Is it kind of a mirage? Is who we saw this past year at Tennessee who he really is, or the player that, didn't do a whole lot at Virginia Tech before transferring to Tennessee. So I'm really interested to see how it goes this year, because right now, I think he might be the guy that we saw last year, right? If we see another season of that, late breakout or not, older prospect or not. Look, Kenny Pickett was an older prospect who had a late breakout. We just saw him go in round 1. So if Hendon Hooker can do that again for Tennessee, what's to stop us from thinking that he could be a round 1 quarterback, even if it's a late round 1 quarterback? And with the tools that he has, if he gets round 1 draft capital, it's wheels up for fantasy purposes, right? It's the same argument people made about Malik Willis. If Malik Willis got first round draft capital, he was people were going to smash take him at 101 in Superflex drafts. Instead, he falls. So it'll be interesting to see how this season shakes out and if he can kind of replicate or duplicate what he did a season ago and continue to build off that. Because if he can, I don't think it will stop a team from selecting him early just because he's an older prospect. At number 5, Tyler Van Dyke, big, strong arm guy, kind of in that pocket passer mold, but mobile enough to help himself out in the pocket. Really came on following D'Eriq King's injury for Miami. He's the guy that I'm looking for to potentially be the biggest riser of this group. I think the NFL could really, really love Tyler Van Dyke if he has a big 2022. And it wouldn't shock me if he's the guy when it's all said and done that, flips spots with Anthony Richardson or, moves up this list pretty considerably. He's kind of the wild card of the group for me that I'm watching right now. All right, let's talk tight ends. And I'm sorry, I don't have 5 tight ends to talk to you about today. It's just too early to talk 5 2023 NFL prospect tight ends. Look, the headliner from the group is Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. We've been saying it for 2 years, right? He's going to be the best tight end prospect in this draft. The kind of parallel will be drawn that he gives off some kind of Gronk type vibes. He's a very good pass catcher. He's proven. He's accomplished. He's going to be, I think, almost write it in ink, the top tight end drafted in 2023. Definitely the one that I'm most excited about right now. And then the other 2 I have on this list are Theo Johnson from Penn State and Sam Laporta from Iowa. These are the 2 guys that I'm kind of monitoring the most at the time being, and we'll see if somebody else kind of emerges. But these are the 3. Michael Mayer, it's going to be tough for anyone to dethrone him as tight end 1 throughout this season and this process. But we'll see what happens, and we'll see if somebody like Sam Laporta or Theo Johnson can kind of close that gap a little bit and make things a little more interesting. So that's kind of a quick, overview at who some of the top names are to be on the lookout for in 2023. It's not too early. Even if you're not playing Devy, it's not too early for just a dynasty manager to start knowing these names, right? Because some rookie drafts have already happened and wrapped up. Some will start, in the next week or 2, and some will start later this summer. But there's still time to be accumulating some 2023 draft capital. And it's not as easy as it has been in years past because 2023, the drumbeat has been building for, a year plus how good the class is going to be. So it's not like you're going to get picks for free. But in leagues where drafts for 2022 rookie drafts haven't concluded yet, there's still 2022 rookie fever going on, right? So if you're a team that's in rebuild mode and you can flip some of your 2022 capital for 2023 picks or sell some of your aging veterans for 2023 picks, you absolutely should be considering it because 2023 has kind of that headline buzz, especially at running back. It's a loaded class. There's plenty of guys we haven't even talked about today that are going to be worth mentioning over the next coming weeks, months, leading through college football season, and another wide receiver class that's loaded, and a very good potentially quarterback class that should blow the 2022 class out of the water. So you're going to want to make sure you keep it locked in here throughout college football season, throughout the NFL season, because we're going to keep breaking these guys down for you. If you haven't, hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel because we're going to try and get back to doing more of these in video form. And make sure you're following or subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Typically, we took the week off last week. I had a bit of a crazy schedule, but we're going to get back on a normal schedule now, new podcast episodes every week. So I appreciate all of the support as always, and we will be back with another episode of the Dynasty Drive next week. We'll talk to you guys then. Thanks.